watching Dante's Boxing Nation.
Dante's Boxing Nation, what's going on, guys? You know, no one is impervious to criticism, okay? I want people to understand this. You have to understand when you watch my channel, this is not a cheerleading channel, all right? This is not the type of channel where the uploader is going to ignore telling the truth because he's afraid of hurting fans' feelings. Now, since I've been making these videos, you guys seen me heavily criticize Deontay Wilder, criticize Canelo Alvarez, criticize Juan Marquez, Peter Quillin, even J. Leon Love, which I had on my show, and many other people, right? Of course, Manny Pacquiao. But why is it when I criticize Peter Quillin, J. Leon Love, Berman Stavern, you scroll down to the comment section and it's an adult conversation? It's like professionals having a conversation. Some people may agree, some people may disagree, okay? But everything is in a cordial response. But then when it's criticism about Canelo, about Manny Pacquiao, about Juan Marquez, etc., right? Now all of a sudden you got grown men talking about your mama. You got grown men playing a race card. You got grown men, saying you're gay, saying all this kind of stuff that has absolutely nothing to do with a professional conversation about boxing. Why is that? Why is it, like I said, when I talk about these category of fighters, as opposed to the first category of fighters, it is such a stark contrast? Now, of course, I know the answer. It is a rhetorical question, okay? That's just something I want you guys to think about. But anyway, we're going to move on and talk about this great fight between Marquez and Mike Alvarado this past weekend. Now, in the first 4 or 5 rounds of this fight, Marquez, he looked great. In fact, he looked so great that commentator Jim Lampley, he would say that the speed is still there, the ring generalship is still there, the counter-punching ability, the intelligence, etc., so on and so forth, it is still there despite his age. He is basically still the same fighter. That's what he would say, right? And I totally agree with that assessment. In fact, that type of performance that Marquez, he displayed against Alvarado is the exact same performance he displayed against Juan Marquez, Mike Katsidas, and so on and so forth. It's the exact same performance. There was nothing lacking in contrast to those fights prior. Now, let me tell you where the problem lies when it comes to Juan Marquez. Even when Marquez is at his best, as Jim Lampley eloquently put it, he still gets knocked down by a hand-picked opponent that he was supposed to beat easy. He still gets hurt on numerous occasions throughout the fight. He still gets hit with the same punches over and over and over again. And this is supposed to be the best Marquez. And you can no longer use the age excuse because Juan Marquez, he put on the exact same type of performance this past weekend that he's been putting on for the last 10 or 15 years. It's the exact same performance. Like I said, go all the way back to Mike Katsidas, to Juan Baby Bull Diaz. You go even further than that. You go all the way back to when he lost his first fight to Freddie Norwood. It was the same performance. The same Marquez getting knocked down, the same great counterpunching ability, but lack of defense since day one. Like I said, for Marquez being who he is, I would say he had a great performance. But if I'm comparing him to the best welterweights in the world, the best junior welterweights in the world, the performance was not that impressive. Let's just put it that way, okay? Marquez did good for who he is. But in contrast to the best fighters, no, it wasn't the best performance. Now, I want to kind of go back to the video that I did, Manny Pacquiao versus the welterweights. In that video, I talked about all the welterweights, of course, including Manny Pacquiao. I want to go ahead and include Juan Marquez into that mix as well after this performance. Now, in that video, I talked about pound for pound some of the best fighters in the world. Guillermo Rigo, for example. I said that if you put Guillermo Rigo against almost anybody at 122 right now, even if, let's say, Abner Maris was still undefeated, Leo Santa Cruz is there, and Nonito Donaire wants a rematch. All three of those opponents, you would pretty much say that's almost a guaranteed win for Rigo. Andre Ward, no matter who Andre Ward faces right now, you would say it's almost a guaranteed win for at least the majority of opponents that you would put Andre Ward in the ring with, right? Floyd Mayweather, almost the majority of opponents, if you put him in a rematch with Canelo, a rematch with Marquez, a rematch with Maidana, even if you put him in a ring with Porter and Keith Thurman, it's not a guaranteed win, but at least 3 out of the 5 or 4 out of the 5, you would most likely favor Floyd Mayweather to win those fights. Or a lot of you guys may even favor him to beat 5 out of 5, right? Now, let me ask the question when it comes to Marquez. Now, you know how ignorant fans always say, oh, Floyd Mayweather, he picks nothing but easy opponents. He only fights guys that's a guaranteed win for his record, so on and so forth, right? So now I'm going to ask the question when it comes to Marquez. Who's a guaranteed win for him? Who is an easy opponent for Juan Marquez at the welterweight division and the junior welterweight division, right? Let's look at some of the top names at the welterweight division. Remember, once again, you're trying to find a fighter that Marquez can beat for sure. That's supposed to be an easy opponent, okay? Let's look at the names. Devin Alexander, Sean Porter, Marcos Maidana, Keith Thurman, Floyd Mayweather, Manny Pacquiao, Amir Khan, Kell Brook, Robert the Ghost Guerrero, just to name a few, right? So the question once again is, which one of those opponents would be an easy fight and pretty much a guaranteed win for Marquez's record? You would most likely say none of them, right? Now, we already know he knocked out Manny Pacquiao, did Marquez. That would probably be the only guy that you could say he has probably the best chance of beating, but even that fight is a 50-50 fight, right? Because we have to take into consideration Marquez was hurt worse than he had ever been hurt in that 4th fight with Pacquiao, as opposed to all the other fights, right, that he had with Pacquiao. So with the exception of Manny Pacquiao, I think it's fair to say that Marquez would struggle and most likely lose to the majority of fighters that I just named, okay? It wouldn't be a guaranteed win. It would be an uphill battle for all of those opponents for Juan Marquez. Now let's look at the junior welterweight division. Let's look at some of the fighters down there, okay? Let's just still put, since Danny Garcia hasn't moved up yet, let's add him, all right? Danny Garcia, Lucas Matisse, Kareem Mayfield, Thomas Delerme, and last but definitely not least, Ruslan Provodnikov. You remember that guy, right? That's the guy that Marquez openly avoided and ducked, did everything that he could do to avoid that fight, to just pick the guy that Provodnikov just knocked out, Mike Alvarado, and still kind of struggled against Alvarado, all right? And what was that you Marquez fans were telling me before? When Marquez first avoided the Provodnikov fight, you said, oh, there's no reason for Marquez to fight Provodnikov. Marquez just came off of a loss. He has to at least come back, and get a win. So now what do you guys say about that fight? Is Marquez going to fight Provodnikov now, since he's not coming off of a loss? We know what time it is. Of course he's not going to fight Provodnikov. He's never going to fight Provodnikov. He wouldn't have fought Provodnikov 10 years ago. And if you guys have been honest with yourself, then you know this already, okay? So let's go back and let's look at all of the fighters that I just named at the junior welterweight division. Who does Marquez beat for sure, or at least have at least a good 80% chance of beating? Like, you look at that fight and say, oh, Marquez would beat that guy. In other words, looking at it just like when you found out that Floyd Mayweather was about to fight Canelo. Just like when you guys found out Floyd was about to fight Maidana. When he was about to fight whoever else it was, right? Who do you see Marquez beating like you seen Floyd beating that guy? And I can tell you right now, and if you've been honest with yourself, the answer would be zero. The answer would be nobody. You wouldn't expect Marquez to beat any of those top junior welterweight fighters as easy as a Mayweather beat Canelo, as easy as a Mayweather beat Robert Guerrero. So my question to the fans is Marquez even considered pound for pound one of the best fighters in the world anymore? I mean, if he can't beat any of the top guys, you can't say, oh, well, look at what Marquez did, 3 years ago, 5 years ago, or this and that. You can't just go off of the Manny Pacquiao knockout win. It's what have you done for me lately, right? And Marquez hasn't beat any of the top guys lately outside of Manny Pacquiao. We know that Floyd Mayweather is constantly fighting against champions, right? Marcos Maidana, champion. Robert Ghost Guerrero, champion. Canelo Alvarez, champion. When is Marquez going to go in there against a champion? It doesn't have to be the best champion in the division. I'm just talking about a legitimate champion. When is he going to face a champion? And you guys can't have it both ways. You can't say, oh, Marquez, he's too old and he's already done this and he's already done that, but then at the same time, you still want him to be pound for pound. If you think that Marquez is too old, then that means he's not one of the best fighters in the world. And he's pretty much like an old Chavez just going on some, senior citizens tour fighting old fighters, basically. You can't have it both ways. Either Marquez is still one of the best fighters in the world, which means he would have to fight the best fighters available, or he's no longer one of the best fighters in the world. And he could just ride off into the sunset and not be considered one of the best right now. Now, I understand Marquez will go down as one of the greatest Mexican fighters of all time. But right now, he has not proven that he is one of the best fighters pound for pound in the world right now. Marquez would have to get in the ring with someone that is a legitimate threat to him. Now, he did that against Bradley, and he lost, okay? It took him 4 fights to knock out Manny Pacquiao. Outside of those guys, who else is he going to fight? Okay? And speaking of this, now I'm hoping Marquez, he turns down this Pacquiao 5th fight because once again, we as boxing fans, we want to see new fights, don't we? We don't want to see a 5th, 6th, 7th fight Marquez Pacquiao. Or even, I don't even really care that much about a 3rd Bradley fight. Although I would rather see a 3rd Bradley Pacquiao fight than a 5th Marquez fight. All right? So, like I said, once again, Marquez, he needs new challenges. Pacquiao needs new challenges. You got to excuse me. My nose is a little clogged up. I got a cold right now. But like I said, man, I'm really hoping that Marquez sticks to his guns and he doesn't do a 5th fight with Manny Pacquiao, which that would just throw a monkey wrench in Bob Arum's program, and that would force him to put Pacquiao up against new challengers, put Marquez up against new challengers. I'm starting to feel like Jesse Vargas, he may end up being one of these guys' opponents. I really don't see anyone else that Arum could match these guys up with, so that'll make it very interesting. Like I said, it's getting to the point where Bob is going to have to start thinking outside the box and possibly working with Golden Boy and other promotional companies to get the fans the fights that they really want to see. So anyway, that's pretty much all I got to say about this subject. Once again, when it comes to Marquez's performance over Alvarado, I would say it was a great performance for Marquez being Marquez. But if I'm comparing Marquez's performance to other welterweights and junior welterweights, it was not an impressive victory, okay? That's pretty much all I got to say, guys. I'm on to the next one.